Welcome to the Progress Zone podcast, where we help you create real momentum in your mindset, business, health, and life. I'm your host, Jody Donaldson, and every week we'll explore the small, intentional steps that lead to big, lasting growth. This isn't about hype, it's about habits. So let's get started. Well, hey everyone, welcome back to the Progress Zone podcast, where we explore what it really takes to unlock your full potential in life and business and beyond. Today, I'm joined by someone who truly embodies that spirit of progress, Alex Husner. She's an entrepreneur, thought leader, and co-host of the Alex and Annie podcast, one of the fastest growing shows in the vacation rental and hospitality space. Over her 15 plus year career, Alex has built a reputation for helping brands grow, shaping industry conversations, and now charting her own path as the founder of Directly Alex, a company dedicated to helping vacation rental professionals tell their stories more directly and authentically. Alex, welcome to the Progress Zone.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Jody. It's great to see you. And I'm so excited that you've done this show and just all the information that you're going to bring to your audience. I mean, you've got an incredible history and background, and I think it's great what you're doing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you being here. This is a long time coming. I've been watching you grow over your career and supporting you from a distance. And it's just been great to see. And so thank you for being here. I can't wait for folks to hear your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've built such a respected name in hospitality and vacation rentals. But for those meeting you for the first time, kind of take us back. Like, how did your professional journey begin?
Yeah, so I grew up in New Hampshire, went to school in Virginia, moved to Myrtle Beach in 2007. And I think the early days of my career were pretty instrumental to like where I got to where I am at this point, I guess you could say. Myrtle Beach is very much a market that it's a lot of people that they're from here. They've been here generationally. There's a lot of, consolidated wealth on the families that kind of built the beach. And when I came in as a newcomer from New Hampshire, had zero idea about any of this. And I worked at two different advertising agencies right out of school, had really, in college. This is actually funny. In 2007, we were learning about newspaper ads. So I mean, like what you learn in college about marketing back then, it really didn't mean a whole lot. But what the culture shock was coming into this environment where like this is very much a good old boys kind of town, and it's about who you know, not even what you know. And I quickly realized, this was a difficult place to break into business as somebody just not from the area, and also not really having a whole lot of experience. So kind of, struggled for a couple of years with that. And the second agency that I was at, basically my job was sales and was out trying to sell people on different marketing services. And the one company this was 2009 during the recession. I mean, nobody was buying advertising. This was not a good time for any type of industry. And the one company that I, really built a bond with was Condo World. And I ended up, they bought basically everything I was selling, which was crazy. So I had one really good client, but then about probably 8 or 9 months into it, the CEO called me and he said, I need to talk to you, and I need you to come alone to my office. And I thought, when I heard the voicemail, I thought, I know exactly where this is going. Like, not in a weird way, that he was going to offer me a job. And he said, come alone, because normally I would come with the agency up there. Yeah. So I went and I met with him, and he said, I want to give you this opportunity. And it's not an opportunity you can't refuse, but it's an opportunity you shouldn't refuse. And always remember that, because it was 1000% something that I shouldn't have refused, and I didn't. And I moved forward and started a 13-year career there as director of marketing, and then became CMO. And we did a lot of amazing things. I learned so much in those years. But at some point you get to the point where you feel like, you've kind of outgrown where you're at. Like your pot is, you've outgrown it, and you need to move. And I started feeling that way probably year 11 or 12. But I loved my boss and mentor, Roy, so much, and I never would want to have left him. And so in my mind, I'm like, I'll be here until he's here.
Right.
He passed away about 9 months before I left the company.
Oh, wow.
And he was 85, and it was sudden, but even though he was old, nobody ever thought he would die.
Yeah.
And for me, that was it was like a very big turning point in my life, that things just started to change. That one, the company would never be the same without him, but also it gave me the capacity in my mind to think about doing something different that would honor his legacy, but also keep me fulfilled and just see more of the world, literally and figuratively. And lo and behold, right as all these things kind of started happening, like, I very much believe in the timing of the universe and how these things, they happen at the right time for the right reason.
Right.
A wonderful opportunity came on for me to work with a company called Casago that was a vacation rental franchise business. And it was like going from a locally owned small family business into a massive conglomerate. And a great opportunity. It came with a lot of challenges. It was a good experience. But in that time, I met you. And I met a lot of amazing people. I worked there for about a year. But in that year, I realized that, all the things that those 13 years in that job, and even the 2 prior when I first moved to Myrtle Beach, they've all been building towards something bigger. That the people I've met have come into my life at the right times, and the understandings and knowledge that I built in that time got me to the point where I was like, I can do this, or I can go work for myself and I can start my own business, because I've built up a legacy of, experience and connections and networking. And now I need to leverage that. And so that's what I did. Early 2024, started my own business, and it's been a great experience. It has not been easy, I would say, but at the same time, I get to work with who I want to work with, and I only work with people that I actually personally enjoy. So
Yeah.
It's been a wonderful thing. And the podcast, the podcast has been incredible during this entire journey, and really opened up a lot of those doors to make that happen. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Well, we'll get into the podcast info in a little bit here, but I want to say, like, kudos to you. I am sure leaving the security of an executive role, like when you were CMO at Condor, like, to even jump into something new now, even though Roy had passed, just still making that jump after having kind of like, that was your family. Like you said, you grew up, you kind of grew up in that environment.
For sure.
It had to be really tough. What was how did you break through that decision-making process?
I think, when you start to have those feelings of like, you're thinking about something else, and like something doesn't feel right, or you feel like you've either done everything you can do, and like the rest of your career is going to just be, per quo, what's going on right now. That hits certain people. And like it for me, it really hit that I'm like, I know there's so much more that I have to give, and I want to see what else is out there. And that was kind of like building within me, I guess you could say. And then really it's like, the universe and the timings, that things that happen that start kind of showing you, you're not okay with this anymore. And like, this is not right anymore. And it was kind of a little bit of a domino effect, I guess, that like I had those feelings, but then other things kept happening that just showed, misalignment, I guess, between what Roy and I had envisioned for the company and then what it became. And it is still a wonderful company. There's nothing wrong with how they operate or what they do. But our vision was much larger, and really he wanted to turn Condo World into a franchise. And so that's why when the Costco opportunity came about, I'm like, this is my opportunity to honor all that experience and what he wanted to do. But to do it under a different brand, which it was crazy because I mean, I'm wearing my Alex Nanny vest right now, but I wore that brand on my sleeve every day. Like, I'm surprised I don't have a tattoo of it, to be honest, because I loved it. And like, that is how I get when I work with companies and brands that I truly love, is that like, it becomes a part of me. Sure. And like I become part of the brand. So, but yeah, it takes a lot of reflection and gosh, a lot of thinking, and also just trusting your intuition to say, I got to try something new.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is hard to do, right? For most people, I think our fears and our doubts, to push past that, and the uncertainty of knowing what this new role is going to be, or new position, or new agency, or new company, makes it really tough. But to not only go to that company though, but then also after being there and realizing, you know what, like I can do this. You have so much experience, so much knowledge. You're so respected in the industry. It's like to then go into entrepreneurship. Have you, since becoming an entrepreneur, has your definition of success changed in any way, or has it kind of been like, I'm here finally? Kind of what's that felt like?
Yeah, it definitely has, because I think, when you make that decision to go do this out on your own, for me at least, initially, my number one goal was I need to replace the income that I was making at two high-paying jobs. I need to be able to prove to myself that this is something that's sustainable as a business. And I thought it was, but I think I rushed things in the beginning because I really just wanted to make sure this was going to work. Right. But it's, as you move along with things, it's like, you actually look back and I'm like, do I have to make that exact amount of money? No, you don't. And the ability to have some freedom in your life and decide, when you want to work, where you want to work, who you want to work with, that's hard to put a price on. And I think that was the difficult part of going from the local family-owned business that wanted to be much larger to the corporate business that, the rules are the rules. And that for me, that was very hard. And that's where I'm like, I don't know that I fit in this exact environment, because I want to do things the way that I want to do them, or the way that I know that they should be done. But if you're telling me they can't be done that way, it's going to make me very frustrated. And so, that whole mentality is kind of what led me down that path. But these days, it's like, I do understand more that it's not about focusing on how much I make. It's about focusing on what makes me happy, and where is that fulfillment? And it's I don't know that I have that 100% found out, to be honest. I mean, it's a constant journey, but you have to be thinking about what actually fills your cup at the end of the day. And that's different for everybody.
That's right. Yeah. And you know what, entrepreneurship, it's failing forward, right? Every time, you're trying to figure something out. And I think too, replacing a W-2 salary is really one of the hardest things that holds people back from trying to do something right. So if folks can start a side hustle or something to kind of get some momentum going, I think it helps. But do you feel more aligned now with your purpose, than you have kind of in previous roles?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, again, I love working with a company that I am in love with the brand, and that I love standing for it. And I think that has been a little bit of the challenge of, now that I'm, I work with multiple companies, some I'm more closely working with than others. But some, there's no way I would go get a tattoo of the brand. I love them, but I'm not that connected, but I'm an important part of what we're working on. But for me, it's been learning that not really, there's never going to be another condo world for me. I know that. I could be wrong, but I feel like that was something very unique and special. And you can't always hold yourself to what something was. I mean, you have to continuously adapt. And so now I measure it more on, my own personal happiness, freedom, finding my own fulfillment, because it is different when you work for yourself and you're working for different companies as a consultant versus when you work within a company, you are getting that reminder every day or often, how valuable you are, how important you are, what the work that you're doing is important. As a consultant, kind of, but it's a little different, so it's more about me feeling really good about the work that I'm doing for my clients and knowing that I'm doing what they need to be done. But I need to look at myself for that fulfillment and not necessarily look externally for that. So it's a different kind of environment for sure.
Yeah.
But
well, I love everything you said though, as far as, as we all get older, right, you start reevaluating what's the most important things to you. And so you're right, maybe I don't need to make the exact amount of money I was making. What can I do now? I have more free time with family and friends and loved ones, doing something for you to fill your cup so that then you can give 110% to whoever you're working with. Right. And then it's again, choosing who you want to work with necessarily versus, being forced sometimes to work with misaligned thoughts and goals. And I think that's says a lot, because I feel like it brings an inner peace to a lot of folks that like you that are doing this, even though it's hard. I get that entrepreneurship's not easy, but I think when you frame it and structure it the way you've kind of talked here, I think it makes a big difference, at least in your own self comfort level, right? Of be okay. So.
Yeah. And I think it's important to acknowledge too, that it's like, if don't focus on the money. If you focus on what you love to do, the money will come, and it's like, I mean, I've heard that for years from different, role models and podcasters and books and everything else. But I do believe that it's true that, like, when you put yourself in the right environment and the right headspace, the right opportunities, and people will come to you, and that's going to pave the pathway to anything that you need. But like, if you get too focused on one thing, whether it's you just want this new thing to be because of a lifestyle or just because of the money or whatever it is, like, sometimes what you focus on becomes the worst thing, and it actually brings out the things that maybe you get them, but that's not really what you wanted. So I think it's more about just like, it's hard to put into words, but it's like, you want to have your goals and what you want to do, but I think you have to be like broad enough to say, if it's not exactly this, that's okay, because I have these 5 things that I want to fulfill, of these things that are going to make me happy. Right. And like, really, if you get 3 of the 5, you're pretty good.
Yeah, that's not bad, right? That's passing.
Yeah.
Well, I know you've had, like, your experience, not only have you led the teams, but I know you've served on some boards and you've shaped big conversations across hospitality. Has there been any leadership lessons that really have stuck with you through your journey? I know Roy seemed to be a huge mentor and stuff, but anything that leadership lessons that you've learned from that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, on the board side of thing, I spent most of my early career in mid-career, so to this point at least, growing up on boards of directors. And in our area here, there's 2 chambers of commerce, and they are very influential as far as how tourism dollars are spent. And Roy got me involved with one of them early on, and I served on the board there, and then served on the main board for the Myrtle Beach area Chamber of Commerce and DMO, which it manages a budget of about $50 million a year in advertising. I mean, it's a very large organization and powerful organization, and it was incredible to be asked to do that and be part to that level. But what I learned so much in those days, and I would say, if anybody has opportunity to serve on any sort of boards or committees or anything like that, especially as you're young in your career, do it, because it also helps you expand your mind beyond the job that you just do every day, whether it's working for a company or owning your own business. But to be around other leaders, I think it is massively impactful. And it was for me. But the one thing that I definitely learned that year as the chair of the board was, when you're dealing with a lot of stakeholders, it's about buy-in, and everybody's reason for supporting or not supporting something is going to be different based on what they want and like what their, intentions are. And to get things across the goal line, you've really got to meet people where they're at and, come together with something that's going to meet the needs of what they're most interested in achieving. And it's a sales thing in a way of like, you have to deliver on what you're saying to somebody, but you also have to understand, like, you need to position things in a way that they are going to want to buy into it. And so that they support things. And that was the biggest thing with a group that has so many stakeholders there, is that you have to have the support of the group in order to get something to move forward. And what I learned from that is, it doesn't matter whether it's a chamber or it's a company, it's the same thing. In the companies that I work with, it's like, I can have a great conversation with the CEO or the general manager of a company and say, this is what we should be doing. But unless the rest of the team has that buy-in, even if they are the ultimate decision maker, it's going to be hard, and you have to be mindful of like getting everybody on your side in order to get something across the goalpost.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so you've had to grow a lot, even like, so them being the chairman and like having to like be the leader when you were part of that group, right? That is kind of influencing the decision maker potentially. Did you notice in your own growth anything that stuck out, or was there one of the challenges that taught you something about yourself through that journey of becoming the leader versus being part of the group?
Yeah, I mean, I think it made me, and I think this is always a quality that I've had, but I think it helped bring it out more, of just learning to always listen to all sides of a story before making a judgment or sides of a decision, right? And it's like, I do feel like that's something that I am good at, but I think being in that role made it even more so, of like, don't come into a conversation with conclusions already drawn on your mind. Come in with an open mind. And if somebody disagrees with you, like, hear them out for why they disagree. And if they don't think that this is the right thing for the company, the community, whatever, for their business, like, you need to be able to take that feedback and then be able to put that with the broader picture of what the goal is, without, doing something just to please one company or one person, but taking into consideration what the overall goal is, but always being very mindful of hearing both sides, of why people agree or disagree on something. And there, it's it can get contentious when you've got a bunch of business leaders in a room. So
sure.
that was on the regular. So I'm
sure. But that, I think, to your point, listening, like just being open to the conversation is so important, because I and hearing that maybe when you first entered the market, it was a good old boy network and things like that. Like, that's really tough to go in that environment and know that nobody's really listening to you, right?
Yeah.
Like, you progress to be a leader, and now you're knowing, like, I've got to listen. I've got to be open to all sides. I've got to be able to look at this from a 40,000 foot view to make good decisions or throw out better ideas, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, this is like therapy talking to you today, because you're right. I mean, and it's funny when I look back on that story of like the early days, and I felt like I couldn't get through that, glass door, wooden door, whatever it was. And then the position that I held there, I mean, I was still the youngest chair in 100 years. And I think like only like the fifth or sixth woman. So like, when I look back on it, I'm like, when I felt like things could not happen, anything is possible. I mean, like that if you had told me in 2007 that I would end up the chair of that board, right, that the companies I worked with said, like, you're not from here, you don't own the land, you're not part of these families, it's going to be so hard for you to sell and do anything. Yeah. And I look back, I'm like, you know what? Like, it makes me proud. But like, it also shows, you can break through things if you have the right mindset, and if people, you need to be likable. I mean, like, you need to be able to get along with people and see both sides of just opinions, and, be that person that people want to go to. And that's what draws you into these leadership roles. Yeah.
Yeah. Agree. So your podcast, right? I mean, it's become one of the top go-to shows on the hospitality and vacation rentals, Alex and Annie podcast. How did you and Annie come together to create that?
Yeah, so Annie and I actually, we didn't work directly together, but we had hired, Annie was a vendor for the company when I was at Condo World, but we had hired her directly, or as like a freelance, to try and help us find companies in the area that she lives in, Panama City Beach, Destin, Panhandle area, to join a cooperative effort that was kind of like the franchise model that we never actually built. But in that, she, her and I became better friends and got to know each other. She met Roy only over, phone calls during those days. But we just really clicked, and we started texting outside of work, and just like, we just kind of formed a bond. And during COVID, there was a big push on Clubhouse, which I don't even know if Clubhouse is even around anymore, but like Clubhouse was basically, it was like an audio only and only in the moment type of a show that like you couldn't go back and listen to it. But she got asked to host some of these that were specific about within our industry and these groups. And she had me on a couple times with them, and we really enjoyed the conversation. And it came up literally probably on a Friday night. We're both at our own homes having a glass of wine, texting. And one of us said, this would be fun if we made it into a podcast where people could actually go back and listen to it, or, watch it if it's on YouTube. And so we said, okay. And it just seemed kind of like an idea. And then, it was right after we had kind of started going down that route and decided the name would be Alex and Annie, which is our names. Her name is Annie. Yeah. And we had people say like, well, that's like Alex and Annie. I'm like, no, but her name's Annie. And like, it is our name. So like, they can't say that we can't use that name. But we made the decision at one of the trade shows that was the first one post-COVID. And we pushed out an announcement on LinkedIn, like right at the closing session, and the whole rest of the show, everybody kept coming up to us. They're like, when is it starting? What's it going to be about? All these things. And we had no plan at that point. So we're like, we'll get back to you. Yeah. But lo and behold, we went home, we made the plan, we did all the research, got the mics, like figured out what podcasting as a business, or not even as business, as a hobby, what it looks like, how you do it. But it quickly grew into something much larger than we had any idea that it would. And we've just really enjoyed it. We have very authentic kind of, our parents call it's like a talk show, but that we just have these open conversations like this, where it's, it's not scripted, it's not rehearsed, but people feel like they're kind of like a fly on the wall listening into these conversations. And, that we're in the 4th year now, and the podcast is really, it's opened up. Yeah, it's a long time, but it's opened up a lot of doors for both of us. And, we've traveled internationally to go to shows, and get to go to a lot of the shows here in the States, and people want us set up with our booth. And it's been a wonderful experience.
Yeah. What was the biggest hesitation in starting that? Was it just the idea of announcing it, and like, where do we begin? Because you didn't have it all figured out yet, right? So what was the biggest hesitation? Just taking the chance to do that, or where did you guys talk about when you were having those brainstorming?
I'm always about just pushing something out there, and like, let's like announcement wise, like doing a teaser, like let's put it out there and let's see how it hits. And it hit really well. So I'm like, okay, now I'm like even more interested in this. Yeah. People actually want to hear what we have to say. But for me, the biggest fear was probably just like perfectionism, to be honest. I remember the first few episodes, the first probably 8 or 9 months, I edited the show, and then we got to a certain point where we got an editor. But I edited the heck out of the show. That I cut out every time we would say or like anytime we messed up. And even our professional editor now, he doesn't do that because he knows people don't mind. You don't say everything perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be you, and it has to be authentic. And for me, it was like every episode, I was just like, I've listened to everyone, and like it's helped me as a speaker too. But like, I would be so stressed out about like, oh no, why did I say something a certain way? And people don't notice it. It's like everybody in your mind, you think things are way worse than they are, or that everybody's noticing when you mess up, but they didn't know what you were trying to do in the first place. So for me, it was that feeling of like, if it's not perfect, how will I feel, or like what will be thought about me? Yeah.
I think that's probably a pretty normal feeling though, that a lot of people have, right? Like, and maybe because I'm have that perfectionism too. And sometimes that, prevents progress, which is part of why this is my own therapy sometimes, to keep reminding myself when I talk to folks, that it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to move forward.
You just have to start.
You just got to do something. You've talked to so many different industry leaders in the space. What have you learned from talking to all of them? Has there been any patterns, anything that because you've been in the industry for so long, was there anything that's like, you've just, that you didn't know that you didn't know type of thing?
Yeah. I think the conversations that we have, certainly make us more aware of things outside of our own like personal bubbles of what we do within the industry, which is great. But beyond that, one of the early interviews that we did was with Marcus Radar, who's the CEO of a company called Hostfully, that's a property management system, big company. And he came on, and we thought he was just going to want to talk about his software. And I don't know what we said to prepare him. I think we said something along the lines of like, we want to hear your story, but he came prepared to tell his story and some just like super inspiring nuggets of information that literally, when I watch that episode back, you can see it like, it's almost like a cartoon. You can see it soaking into Annie and I, like our eyes bulging. We're like, oh my God, this is exactly what we needed to hear. And basically what he said was that, you know, in your career and in your life, you're going to meet people. And it's all about planting seeds that you don't know in the moment, that when you meet one person and you meet them, but then, you know, months down the line, you need something and you remember, well, this person, their husband or their wife or their brother or them, like they had a connection to something. And like, that could be how I want to get to that next spot. And then the whole theme was about like planting seeds and how, like, when you harvest those seeds and you water them, like what those turn into as far as opportunities. And it just, that really hit the mark for us of like, that's kind of been how we have built our careers. But I hadn't heard it described the way that he did. And he was more eloquent than I am saying it, but it really hit the mark. And I would say, without giving that much of a example that he did, a lot of the CEOs that we talk to say similar things. Like it is very much about the journey, and it's about who you know, not what you know, like I mentioned earlier. And, you know, it's about the relationships, and it's about like, you know, fostering those relationships. And then when you are at the point that you are needing help or like you want to grow in a certain area, you have those people and like they will come to you and come back to you and cycle through because you've spent that time in that journey.
Yeah. Well, and I think it probably also, hearing them, because one, I do love the stories. I mean, some of the storytelling just connects everything together, and it just makes it enjoyable to listen to and hear how they got to where they are. But I bet that it also has helped or had some breakthroughs that you on your own journey too, that you can relate to, because you're like, oh, okay, I'm going through that now, or I went through that last year, you know, and it just makes it more, like you said, having that network and having the people to go to when you have questions, right? Like you don't have to reinvent the wheel a lot of times. Sometimes it's just like, hey, what do I need to do to get through this little barrier or push through? So I love that. Yeah. And you guys do a great job of it. You pull out the good stories from folks and hearing, you know, a lot of their journeys and really getting into some of the, you know, the stuff that you don't see in the marketing and the advertising, right?
Yeah.
I think
I mean, like, you know, people do business with people they know, like, and trust at the end of the day. So I think it's really important it doesn't matter what industry you're in, but like if you are a leader of a company or you work for a company, whatever the situation is, your own company, I mean, people want to hear about you and your journey and like whatever you offer, your service, product, whatever, that's important. But like telling your story cannot be more can't be more told. I mean, like people want to see the people they're doing business with. And I think when you put yourself out there, which it's not always easy. I mean, for us or for the people that we come on the show, that they've told some really harrowing tales of, you know, adversity and like, you know, just tough things that have happened on their journey, but it makes people connect with you. And like, they're more authentically engaged in a way that it's not just about the company, you know, and that's, you know, a brand is a brand, but like a strong brand is because the people that are part of it are like really, really lean into it and like they live it. And I think you can tell the difference between companies where that's truly the case versus ones where they're like, oh no, I don't want a personal brand. I don't want to talk about things. Like, I don't want anybody to know about me. I totally disagree with that. I think you have to put yourself out there and let people understand who you are as a human being before the company that you work with.
Yeah. Well, and I will tell you, the folks that I have met through that industry, vacation rentals and hospitality, like everybody has been so nice, so welcoming, so helpful just to share information. And that also, I think I might have mentioned this to you several years ago when we first met. I'm like, the people just have been really responsive to like opening up and just having a conversation. Even if you didn't have, you know, a relationship with them prior, just to answer some questions. So I think that's pretty cool with the people that are in that field, in that industry. Let me ask you this. When setbacks come, and I know they always do, what helps you stay grounded and keep moving forward?
I mean, I think with anything, you just I mean, setbacks are going to happen, but like you have to take yourself out of the situation to a certain extent of like, and this is something that's been hard for me, but like you are not your work. I mean, like you are not what you do. There are going to be things that happen that you have no control over, and you either roll with them or you say, this is not what I want to do and I want to move on, whatever it is. But you have to take every situation as, you know, it's everything is temporary, and it's in your control to decide, do you want to stay in these circumstances or whatever it is it worth fighting for or is it not? You know, and it's like you have to really kind of regain that sense of ownership over things of like internally. I mean, of your own mind of like being able to understand, I can do this or I can't do this, or I accept this or I don't accept this. And that's, you know, the setbacks that I've had in my career of things that it got to that point where I said internally and verbally, I'm not okay with this. You know, like this does not align with me. And, you know, you just have to, I mean, you have to trust your instincts. I mean, you really have to trust yourself, and you know inside better than anybody what feels right or doesn't feel right. And when most cases, if you don't go with your gut instinct, you end up finding out that you really should have.
Yeah. Yeah. You find out the hard way usually, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
the worst, right? So I think knowing yourself, and then the piece about it is sitting with it, right? Sit with the uncomfortable feeling to kind of figure out what it really is. Because I think in our world, or instant gratification, everybody's like moving this fast, you know, like you push stuff down, or you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe, I don't know, that doesn't feel right, but whatever, you know, I got to get this going. That you really aren't sitting with, why doesn't it feel right? And be present with that feeling to figure it out. I think so many people just breeze past that because they just are in a hurry, like so many folks are, right? Like our society.
Yeah. No, it's tough to not get caught up by everything that's out there, and people, whether it's, you know, the media or family or friends, you know, that want you to do things a certain way, and you might feel differently. And it's hard to push past those influences, but end of the day, you have to listen to yourself and your internal compass of what is good for you.
Right. Well, for someone who's listening, who kind of feels stuck right now, and they know they need to make a change, but they're terrified to start, what would you tell them?
Change is scary, but it's very liberating when you make it. And I think you have to embrace the fact that just because you're scared, like you need to think about like reframing it in your mind of like, I'm not nervous or I'm not scared, I'm excited. Like I'm excited because I don't know what's going to happen. Like whether for me, it's like, you know, I get nervous when I go on stages when I speak. And it's like, okay, before I go on stage, I think to myself, I'm not nervous, I'm excited. This is an opportunity that I have. And like, I need to not let that, you know, that fear hold me back.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing with anything with jobs of you embrace the unknown, like embrace the fact that you don't know how things are going to go. The biggest thing, and I mentioned this to somebody recently that came to me that was wanting to start their own business. I said, if it doesn't work out, you can always do something else.
True,
like,
right?
Or go back to what you were doing.
Right.
You know, I mean, like it's not like there's like a pit of alligators at the bottom. I mean, like if you want to try something, try it. And if it doesn't work out, you can always try something else, but it was never the wrong decision, because what you will learn, whether it works or it doesn't, is something you needed to learn. Yeah. So try it, do it. I mean, just, you know, you've got to take that step. And I know it's scary, but it's worth it. Yeah. And then it'll guide you where you need to be.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great mindset shift when you were talking about the fear is really excitement, and you just got to push through that, right? Because then the other side's so greater. And look at the how you've grown in that, you know, putting yourself in the uncomfortable and being comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? Like now, you know, like you're able to switch that in your head to be like, no, I'm not nervous. I'm just excited about this opportunity. And, you know, and then you go crush it. So, I mean, I think that's kind of cool. Let me ask you this, since you're in the vacation hospitality industry, do you have a bold prediction for the future of what's going on with vacation rentals? I see a ton of stuff regarding Airbnb, not, you know, supporting the homeowner. And I also see, you know, AI coming into play in a lot of things. Is there anything that you have some bold prediction about?
I mean, this isn't a novel idea, but AI is going to change everything. I mean, I think that's at the end of the day. We just had Tim Rizzolio, who's the VP of Expedia Group on the vacation rental side, recording with us earlier this morning, and we talked about the way that people search, whether it's travel or any type of industry. You used to just go to Google and type in condos in Myrtle Beach or gyms in Cary, North Carolina, or flower shops in Panama City Beach, right? But people aren't searching that way anymore. They're going to ChatGPT and they're saying, I want a condo rental in Myrtle Beach for $300 a night on the oceanfront with 2 bedrooms and blah, blah, blah. Like the ability to talk and speak what you want and actually get those results is just a complete paradigm shift as far as how we access information. And I think that's going to spill over into every industry. And how that all plays out, I think we're all kind of on the sidelines waiting to see because we just this week, I mean, Target, Amazon, UPS, I mean, between those 3 companies, it's like 150,000 people laid off. And a good bulk of those because of AI. So how do we all move forward in the era of AI the way that we talk about it, and one of my clients, Boom, that's a AI property management system, is that it's not about replacing people. It's about letting your people work on more higher value things. And I think that's what AI's role should be as far as technology. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, you still have to have people do business with people they know, like, interest. They still want a human. But what are the things that business generally can adopt from AI that will help get people out of the nitty gritty, just mindless tasks, and be able to allow us to grow, as an economy of like just being, more innovative because we've got time to think about things and not just be doing the mundane.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. It's a tool in the toolbox, right? But we still need folks to be able to prompt it correctly or to, share the information. And you're right. People want to work with people. I feel like, and maybe it's just post-COVID, where everybody was stuck in their homes but there's so much more introversion and people not wanting to connect, or especially younger folks, I'll say, in talking to someone, they don't want to pick up a phone. They don't want to talk to someone. So it's like, the more you have that relational experience, I think you're still going to need that even as we become more dependent on the AI.
I mean, they don't, and I'm the same way too. If I can get an answer quickly, I don't need to necessarily talk to somebody. But if I have a problem, I want to talk to somebody. Right. I want to talk to somebody that speaks my language, not somebody far off. So it's like that balance of everybody wants somebody when you really need something done.
Yeah.
And let's let the people work on that 20% that really need help, and take the 80% or 60% and get that handled of things that could be done more quickly that benefit the customer and the company. Let people really work on helping people where they need to.
Yeah. I think it's also not only affected vacation rentals and stuff too, but I think just real estate in general, from a real estate perspective, I keep reading a lot of stuff regarding like MLSs and having open for consumers to be able to find that data. So like you said, searching a specific, I want oceanfront, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and to put the parameters that we used to have to put in the MLS to get those listings. Now, if it's open source and
just there,
you're like, boom, now I only need to see 3 properties instead of 40, right? Like, So efficiency, I think it'd be really cool, but I do think it's like you said, there's a lot of folks and all of us are kind of just watching it unfold and how it's going to play out in these different industries a little bit. But all right, well, we're getting at the end here. I just want to ask you one thing. What is one thing that you wish you learned sooner? Anything that sticks out?
Ooh, gosh, that's a hard thing to say. I think, it goes back to people, I think, and what we talked about earlier of what I learned in those board years, but like, you can have a bunch of people on a team or whatever kind of group it is that you work with, but you have to get the consortium and the buy-in from the team to make things happen. And I think in my experience, I'm an only child. I've worked best alone, to be honest. I'm somebody that I feel like, if I know something is right, like I can drive it and I can get it done. But I definitely learned over all these years, like it can get to a certain extent, but like you've got to have the people that are supporting it to make it really get to where it needs to be. So I think early on, if I had heard like, even if you think something's right, you're probably right, but you need to spend the time making the other people understand why it's right to get what that end goal is that you're working towards.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Alex, this has been such an incredible conversation. And I thank you so much for sharing your story and lessons and your heart with us today. Where's the best place for the audience to connect with you, whether that's learning more about directly Alex or tuning into the Alex and Annie podcast?
Yeah, I mean, to connect with me, LinkedIn is probably the best place. It's Alex Husner, Husner. And for the podcast, you can go to alexandanniepodcast.com. You can hear all the episodes, learn a little bit more about Annie and I, and we'd love for anybody that's interested to come over and listen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you for having me. This was great. I really appreciate it. And I'm excited to see that you're doing this and just the value you're going to give to people. I mean, these conversations are important. You know, it's you never know what that one thing is that's going to spark something in somebody that everybody can say the same message, but the way that some people deliver it is going to hit that right person. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all human. We all can learn from each other. And I think that's just, so I appreciate those kind words. I'll make sure we put all the links in the show notes as well, so folks can be able to listen in. You guys do a great job on that show. And so thank you for that. And for everyone watching or listening, just remember, progress isn't about perfection. It's about taking small intentional steps every single day. So keep moving forward, and I'll see you next time inside the Progress Zone. Thanks for joining me in the Progress Zone. If today's episode gave you a spark, share it with a friend, subscribe, or leave a quick review. And remember, progress isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up. I'm Jody Donaldson, and I'll catch you next time inside the Progress Zone.